Hello and welcome. I'm here to do a tutorial on different types of relationships. Relationships have been a big topic as of late, and so I'm going to take you through the 5 levels of relationship and connection and talk to you about what they are exactly. So, our number one category that we want are what are called relationships worth having. Our relationships worth having are marked by about 5 different traits. Typically, there's a level of intimacy that is appropriate, there's a level of connectiveness, there's a level of loyalty, and there's a level of transparency and validation. In order for this to be a relationship worth having, we have these 5 components. Now, these 5 components, of course, need to exist in a spouse in order for it to be a relationship worth having. It needs to exist amongst children, amongst friends, in order for it to exist. And obviously, the intimacy, connectiveness, loyalty, transparency, and validation need to be appropriate given the nature of the relationship. Our second category, which is over here, right in this region, we have what's called community connectiveness. Or our community connections. Our community connections are typically really healthy relationships that we have that are limited in their role, and they may not be ongoing or permanent. Whereas in our relationships worth having tend to be close, more long-term or lifelong relationships. So our community connections are typically found with a unified common goal. This can be if we're a part of a religion or a political movement or something. We can be connected by a single activity. This could be if we all do something together as friends that unify us, such as improvisation, a sport, surfing, etc. So our relationships are close, but it is in conjunction with that activity. And if that activity goes away, then the relationship does too. And we're okay with that. We tend to have positive regard towards these individuals. It's not uncommon for us to sing happy birthday, to get little gifts, or to do little celebratory things such as lunch or a round of drinks in order to celebrate our camaraderie. And then finally, there's a certain level of formality in these relationships. There's certain things that we're not going to do that might be overly intimate or too revealing. And so in order to preserve this community connection, there's a certain level of professionalism that we keep as well. Our third type of relationships is found right here. This is in associations. Our associations typically are relationships that aren't very close, but they're appropriate relationships. And this is usually found that we see them frequently, or there is a frequency, maybe once a week or once a month. We see them in the same place, kind of ongoing. There's a familiarity. We tend to know their name. They tend to know ours. And there's a certain goal. We have a goal to collaborate. So this is very much maybe somebody that we would have at work, maybe somebody in another department, maybe somebody who works at a certain place. These are called associates, and we can have very healthy, and our healthy associates are people where we have a professionalism and nice, healthy work-related or professional boundaries with. Then we move into a category where the relationships aren't particularly healthy, but they can be depending on the circumstances. So number 4, we have what's called strained relationships. Our strained relationships, ironically, are often closer than our associations, and they can even be much closer than our community connections. They tend to be an area where many other people could consider somebody of that role a relationship worth having. So we can have strained relationships with our dad, strained relationships with our ex-spouse, strained relationships with our spouse, strained relationships with our children. The strained relationship is marked by a closeness. Often there was a history we are at one time better than we are. There is tension. There is a ongoing, over maybe multiple topics, a way that we don't see eye to eye. And this can be due to genetics, personality, life experiences, etc. There is often a lack of boundaries in strained relationships, and a lack of boundaries typically means that when we've said don't do something, they continually do it. And then there also tends to be a non-even transaction. This can be financial. One person takes considerably more from the other. This can be emotional validation. One person takes significantly more than the other, etc. Strained relationships are relationships that are ongoing, but they're not pleasant, and we typically are not benefiting from them. Finally, we have right here, we have our estranged relationships here in category 5. Traditionally, our estranged relationships is where there's a history, but there's no present relationship. There is a conflict that has been irreconcilable. Typically, the relationship is volatile, and the interactions can be pretty nasty and very combative. I would compare this to whereas in certain family relationships or old friendships, there's a certain level of respect in conflict and debate. This is a person who will completely come at you like they're your worst enemy in a volatile interaction. This is where boundaries are deliberately broken. So unlike in strained relationships where the boundaries might get broken on accident, these are ones where once we know what the boundary is, we intentionally try to break it. And then finally, there tends to be no communication at all. And all of the communication is typically done through slander to others or intense volatility to different people. So there you have it. There's the 5 types. There's the relationships worth having, our community connections, our associates, our strained relationships, and our estrangement. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.